All right, let's go ahead and find out if Senate agrees with some of the moves that the government is making to fix a number of things going on. We'll go to Mark for that.
Well, thank you, Chamberlain. I have with me Senator Einaya Abaribe, who is the Chairman, Senate Committee on Power, Steel Development and Metallurgy, and is also the Chairman, Southeast Caucus of the Senate. You're welcome to Sunrise.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Mark. I'm glad to be here.
Well, we're hoping that report, where you raised issues only recently about development of the rail lines in the country, would have set the scene for our viewers. But only recently, you were on the floor of the Senate talking about how the Southeast had been excluded from the development of rail lines in the country. What precisely, brought that discussion up?
Let me make a slight correction. I didn't say that the Southeast. I said that the Eastern Rail Corridor, and the Eastern Rail Corridor stretches from Port Harcourt all the way to Maiduguri, which means that it's just not the Southeast, but also the South-South, the North-Central, and the Northeast, and all that whole section. Those are the people that we raised the motion about. And of course, when people are mischievous, the first thing they do is to give you an ethnic tag and then want to push you to one corner on the basis of that. That wasn't what our intention is. Our intention actually is to call attention to the fact that there's a constitutional breach. Section 16(1)(b) and Section 16(2)(a) of the Constitution very clear. First, that you're going to use the resources of the country in a manner that will bring maximum benefits to everybody and, of course, utmost welfare to all citizens. Secondly, that you're also going to do economy in a planned and balanced manner, which means that it's not going to be lopsided. And what we noticed was the undue pressure and rush to get this loan. And of course, when we now looked very critically at the letter that was transmitted to the Senate with regard to this loan, there are some very, very disturbing parts of that letter. If you give me the permission, I will just read you only that section. A line inside that letter says this: we are already in the process of completing the concession of the Port Harcourt to Maiduguri line to immediately link the eastern part of the nation. We fully intend to source further concessional funding to ultimately upgrade this critical line to a high-speed standard gauge line. In other words, this letter coming from Mr. President seeking for a loan, and the loan is supposed to be for the Western Line. When the British built this, the railways in Nigeria, there was a Western Corridor which starts from Kano and goes all the way down to Lagos. There's an Eastern Corridor which starts from Maiduguri and comes all the way down to Port Harcourt. And so if you want to deal with the railways, you're going to deal with both. Otherwise, if you just do one part and leave the other part, and as you can see from the tone of this letter, they're not taking any loan for this part. They're saying you're going to wait to find who will concession this part. And so we think that it's a breach of the Constitution, and therefore we had to bring it up as
Senator, I find it very interesting that you say that you were not talking precisely about the Southeast, that you were talking about the Eastern Corridor.
Yes.
Yet you raised this because you're chairman of the Southeast Caucus in the Senate.
Yes.
In other words, you feel that there is a marginalization of the Southeast,
yes,
in the development of the railways as spelt out by the letter to the Senate from the president?
Of course, as the chairman of the Southeast Caucus, we discussed it as a caucus, and we had to bring it out. And of course, when you have to bring out something on the floor, you have to take the totality of what was written in the letter, and it talks about the whole corridor. You could see that it was a specific mention from Maiduguri to Port Harcourt. And the question now comes out to everybody that lives on that corridor, all the people who are in the cities, all the people who development had come because of that rail line. And we're saying, if today there's so much agitation in the country, if today there are so much cries of marginalization, if today there is almost everywhere you go, there is a very serious outcry, you wouldn't continue to do things despite this outcry. What we should do is to look at it. And I think that we're doing the federal government a very good turn by telling it, take a look again at this matter.
The reason I find it interesting was because you were quick to correct me that you were not talking about the Southeast, because usually what happens is that people label people,
Precisely, because I'm chairman of the Southeast and it affects us in the South, but it also affects other people. It affects people who live in Makodi, who live in Lafia, who live in Jos, who live in Maiduguri, in Gombe, all that side. So everybody on this corridor is affected. And you could see that when the motion was put forward on the floor of the Senate, there was overwhelming support, because people now realize that, oh, it affects me too,
But one of the senators there, I think he oversees transport, is Senator Shafa, who stood up to say that was not correct. Your position wasn't correct as at that time. I think he also ruled out certain areas in the Southeast and the South-South zones which were covered. If I can, not his words now, but I also know that the Ministry of Transport, if I read your statement here, says that the Southeast geopolitical zone has not been excluded from the federal government ongoing projects. They cite two major rail projects of the federal government, the coastal rail project from Lagos Calabar, which traverses Lagos Shagamu or Benin City, Sapele, Warri, Yenagua, and also say that there's a siding to Otueke, Port Harcourt, Aba, Uyo, Calabar, and also branch line from Benin City, Abudu, and Onitsha, including Onitsha Rail Bridge.
Well, that is why I said that there's always an attempt at every point that you push government officials to a corner. They try to make it. I mean, you could see from everything that is read. Did they say anything about Umuahia to Enugu, to Makode, to Lafia? That is Southeast. Telling me that, oh, there's a siding that is coming from Port Harcourt or whatever to Aba, so that I represent Aba anyway. So that I should now keep quiet because there's a siding that gets to Aba. And I think that is being very economical, I will say, with the truth. The truth is very clear, and the truth is here in the letter written by the president, that the Eastern Corridor will be concessioned. That's just what the letter says. And we're saying, under the Constitution, you must promote a planned and balanced economy. If the British built a Western Corridor and an Eastern Corridor, and you want to revamp the rail lines, and there's an overall rail plan, why would this start? What is the criteria to say, okay, let's just do the one that goes through the geopolitical zone of Mr. President? Why? What is the criteria? What is the economic importance of that the other side will be excluded? And not to be excluded to say, you're going to also take a loan for it. You're now saying, we're going to wait until we can find who will be willing to come and take it as a concession. And our history over concessioning has not been very, very good.
Well, Senator, I'm afraid I have to interrupt you. When we return from this break, we'll definitely take questions from my colleagues in Lagos. Please stay with us.